This is Chewbacca.
Everybody, today, welcome to today's podcast, the Wealth Through Health podcast with Zac, Deane, Frankie LeRae, and Sally-Anne Kearns. Thank you so much for jumping on, Sally.
You're welcome.
Really excited for this. For those who don't know Sally, what I really love about her story is that she has a massive background in corporate, in business, and she's and a mom and a passionate mom of kids, and has had a massive, 180 flip to following more of her passion, her intuition, helping people with nutrition to what she calls ultimate vitality. Adding nutrition and intuition, you create ultimate vitality. And so she was a co-author of a book recently, and a certified functional nutritional therapy practitioner. She is a host of a podcast as well here in Australia. And I'm just really excited to dive deep into some intuition and nutrition strategies that you've learned from coming from your story and what you're doing, and now helping so many people and launching summits. It's really inspiring to see more of this type of work everywhere, around. So
and I think also the part where actually transitioning from being corporate, because a lot of people think that you can't transition out of that and go into their actual true calling. Because I really resonated when you were saying that you're in real estate, because my mom's in real estate, but she's also a Reiki master and also a counselor as well, a spiritual counselor. But she's trying to transition out of that, and she's kind of hitting a roadblock. So it's just really fascinating to hear that from. I'd love to hear your story on that too. How you done that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it wasn't easy, I won't lie. But like anything in my life, I've tended to rip the Band-Aid off. So for me, Frankie, we were talking offline just around our formative years between 0 and 7, and some of the underlying programming that we adopt without even our consciousness. And so for me, I was abandoned by my father. My mother was a chronic alcoholic who had me at 20. And so I was in a really traumatic upbringing. I had lots of physical abuse, lots of emotional abuse, lots of neglect. And I think when my stepdad stepped into my family at the age of 10, I was really grateful, and he then took custody of me. But what happened was I had a need to be self-sufficient, because I knew that the minute that I could get out into the big wide world, that was when I would have my own power back. So I pursued that and left school early and just went into real estate at the age of 16. So from a young age, I was vaccinated at the age of 5, and I had a really adverse reaction. So I actually went into hospital. They thought I had leukemia, and I was really, really unwell. I was heavily medicated for about 6 months. And then the food allergies started, and then the anxious behavior started, and then the sleepwalking, sleep talking, bedwetting, like all this crazy stuff started happening in my life as my microbiome, which I now understand around my gut health, was penetrated, right? So I all of a sudden had this leaky brain to gut to brain barrier, where ultimately I just wasn't able to function. So I went into sort of 16 to 18 with lots of eating disorders and just this really unusual separation from self and body. Like I had this body dysmorphia, which was ridiculous because I wasn't overweight, but I just couldn't connect. I couldn't bring the two into alignment, that yin and the yang. So I pursued real estate, and I got really good at it. I was selling assets up to 100 million. I had 35 staff. I was about to open 2 more offices. I was in my mid-30s, and I thought I was not going to fall in love. I'd met lots of people that were narcissists and were after the wrong thing, maybe my financial stability or that eccentricity that comes with being an entrepreneur. But then I met my husband, and within 2 days, I had a meditation retreat booked in Bali. He came over. It was his 40th birthday, and within 48 hours, I was like, "I'm going to marry you." And he laughed at me, but I'm now married to him with his children. So we fell pregnant while traveling around the world, and I knew at that point that there was a conscious choice. I could either show up and be a mum and be myself as that mum, or I could outsource my parenting. And this is not a a judgment on anyone, right? Because we all make the decisions that are right for us at the time. But I think I had that reflection and I went, my own life, there wasn't that nurture, there wasn't that love, there wasn't a deep connection, there wasn't the parenting, there wasn't that consciousness in the environment. And I had to battle with addictions and different things throughout my life. So, and not have that navigation of what was going on in my body and all these symptoms and these health crises that would constantly occur. So I made a choice to be a mum. I sold my business, we moved to Melbourne, and subsequently we kind of journeyed to, we had 4 friends suicide in Victoria, which were high-flying executives, all on 500,000 plus, but they were weekend parents. So they didn't get to see their kids until the weekends. And my husband was on the same trajectory. And because of my lack of connection with self and my own health, I had really severe postnatal anxiety and depression. So I was suicidal every month, unexplainably. My husband would come home, I was in a fetal position, crawled up in a ball, going from this really strong, independent, financially successful, driven, unwavering, focused real estate person to this crumbling, mess, basically. And again, just that disconnect from previous identity and really trying to navigate my way into this new world of mum and still have the financial freedom. So I said to my husband, how much longer have you got doing this? He goes, maybe 2 years. He was in corporate, he was really stressed. And I went, I'm not waking up next to a dead husband. So we moved to Mudgee. We're now on 30 acres. We've got a regenerative farm. I've got my clinic here and we're building accommodation at the front. So, we've done full circle. And I'm not going to say that that was easy. I know that was a really long-winded story, but I don't know how else to condense it, but we can all pivot. And for me, the clue was when I was really prepared to take my own life, I had to take my health back into my own hands, because I was going and I was looking externally for the answers. I was going to all the general practice. I was going to specialists. I was going to naturopaths, and no discredit to any of those people, because they were using the tools and giving me the advice that they had, but it wasn't working for me because I hadn't adopted it. I hadn't taken responsibility. And that's where the magic happens in health. And once I started studying functional nutrition, and once I had the skills that I now have, I just knew that I don't have a choice. This is my calling. And it's like this magnetic pull. So I don't know if that answered your question and a few others, but yeah, I'll shut up now. Go on, Brett.
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
And just shivers.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's
sorry.
really powerful. No,
Sorry.
it's an incredible story and super. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably.
And especially because I've been through, I'm going to say same but different, right? I've been through that identity crisis. I built, my first business up. And then from there, after putting my blood, sweat, and tears into this thing, not taking a day off, training, eating healthy, not drinking, not really enjoying life, but I was enjoying life at the same time, but it wasn't my authentic self. And I was actually got to a point where my intuition kept pounding me. You need to step out, you need to step down. And I was like, wait a minute. No, this is my world. This is my life. I need to see this through. I need to make sure this succeeds. And then it got to a point where I was seeking outside answers. And then I pretty much started putting prayers in my, saying prayers nearly every single night. I haven't even shared this with you. Going, please just make this come to a stop. I don't know what it is, but I need something in my life to stop. And it literally hit me in one day. And it was as if somebody came down and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And the next day I didn't go back into my office. It was literally an overnight kind of thing. And then I thought, I'm going to redo it. And then again, then my body started to show symptoms of stuff. I started to rapidly gain weight. I started to have brain fog. I started to have all these other symptoms. And that's where, Zac and I went down to Sydney, and luckily enough, his mom kind of sat me down and was like, you just need to stop. You've been going hard for 5 years. You haven't had a day off. You need to just stop. And I was like, okay, am I allowed to do that? So, and I did have this massive, and I still have breakdowns here and there, with the identity part, because I can see I'm so proud of my company. They're doing so well, they're progressing, but I just would love to be a part of it. I'm still a part of it, but I would love to be a part of the building, putting in the blood, sweat, and tears. But I need to know that that's not my calling anymore. I need to go through a different side. So I really resonate with you on that front.
And we have to be honest with ourselves, right? Because if we don't, then it does, as you say, it shows up in health symptoms. And so when clients come to me and we go through this really lengthy intake process, and our body is extraordinary. Like, we think of all the processes that happen on a day-to-day basis with the right tools, right? When we support it. So those little things like that rapid weight gain that started all of a sudden, that's a clue. It's a beautiful clue. Even things like fatigue, brain fog, constipation, ridges on nails. Oh gosh, I could go through, there's bleeding gums. Like, there are so many little clues, and often
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good thing to give us some awareness on how our body might be reminding us.
You keep getting shivers. You keep moving.
Yeah, so like, our body has these beautiful clues, but our Western world has not taught us how to interpret them. So if we look at those clues as a language, and then we start to interpret that language and just be okay with, instead of, oh, my body's not doing what it should be doing, just having complete surrender and grace for, thank you, body, for showing up, and thank you for giving me these clues. I need to get to the bottom of it, and find a practitioner and find tools that resonate. You have to find something that works for you. Is it energetic stuff? Is it nutrition? Is it moving with energy? Is it the water that you drink? Yeah, whatever that is, like, build up your toolkit with things that work for you. For me, the gateway to my own self was through food, because I had no connection. So the minute that I started to make deliberate, conscious choices around the food that I ate, that's when my world started to shine. That's where my clarity began. And look, I spent 35 years trashing my body and having complete disconnect. So it would be really naive of me to think that as a 40 in 2 days, a 40-year-old woman, that my health will heal in 6 months or 2 months. And so that would be naive. And the last 10% is always emotional. And that's where the real magic happens. But what I found is that like an onion, we have all this, I don't know if I can swear, but we've got all this stuff. You know what word I was referring to. We've got all this stuff, and we've got to start peeling back the layers one by one. And that might be through, gaining financial independence, or having more understanding around, like, if we're feeling constantly in this victim state around, my body's not working, I can't get what I want, and there's no flow in that. And so one of the things that I love sharing with my clients, and it's fundamental, because for food, for me, we've lost the ability to eat properly. We were always eating in the car, eating on the run. We're not in a parasympathetic state. We're being chased by the tiger. I don't know about you, but mum of 2 boys, I'm eating at the bench while trying to feed them. And then there's meltdowns at that 5 to 6 o'clock window. And so constantly in a stress state. So you've got to find ways that work for you. And I think as a woman and or a man, it's always about asking, or as a human being on this planet, it's about, how can I make this work for me? And so when our lives change and pivot, we can ultimately start tuning in maybe to just the food that we have. And that could even be meditative, right? So it's about getting into that zone. So I'm about to eat food. My microphone is a beautiful, delicious meal of, I don't know, for me, it's like chicken soup. It's like my jam in winter. So I'm about to eat this beautiful bowl of chicken soup. I'm going to get completely into a parasympathetic state. I might even close my eyes, take a few deep breaths. I'm going to set an intention for that meal, and I'm going to think of that meal to the point where I get saliva production in my mouth. So I'm going to feel that saliva and think of that meal. That is the start of the digestive process. But we don't do this. We just go, blah, 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 quick, gotta go. And so, like, even that. So how are you signaling? The minute that we start to produce those enzymes in our saliva, it starts to cascade and clue into the rest of the digestive system to actually activate that process. So we can eat the healthiest goddamn diet in the world, but I can tell you right now, if you're not absorbing any of it because you're running around like a maniac, you're not going to absorb those nutrients. So I know for me, I was always on the run. It was food for me was like just a thing that you did. I had no connection. There's another thing that you could do is, if you want to know, don't go and spend thousands of dollars on food sensitivity tests. Again, parasympathetic state. I'm about to eat. Check your pulse for a minute. Might be 74. Put the food in your mouth. One food in isolation, like a banana, not banana bread. Check your pulse again. If it goes up more than 6, don't eat it at the moment. It's creating an allergic response in the body. And so our body has clues, and you will get, once you start activating that, you'll start to get into that parasympathetic state. You'll start to really read your body. If you have MSG or something that maybe you've gone out and there's something not in that meal, and you just, all of a sudden your behavior starts feeling anxious or jittery or stressed, or you feel that brain fog coming on or a headache, like they are clues, beautiful clues. Yeah, sorry, I can talk about this for days.
So
I'll
cool.
just zip it. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap, talking about getting into that relaxed state before eating, before throwing that food down our gob.
Yep.
Guilty of that, by the way.
I used to inhale.
We all are.
Yeah.
And wonder why I was bloated, or wonder why I didn't feel full, and I was like kept eating, or wonder why, I just didn't feel healthy. And so that's a really good point. And is there a way of, like, is there a certain breathing process, or is it just sitting for 2 minutes or 1 minute, or like, what's the best way to get into that parasympathetic state?
For me, it's definitely breath work. And I find that I'm personally more responsive when I close my eyes, because I'm a bit like when I do yoga. If I close my eyes, I get into my body. When my eyes are open, I'm in the world. That's my journey. But you might be different, because we're all bio-individual, we're blessed beings. But for me, it's about closing my eyes and taking that, that deep breath. You could use some box breathing, or they call it alternative nostril breathing, just to really get into that space. If you're feeling anxious, it's been demonstrated that the blood-brain barrier, you breathe a fragrance or something in the left nostril, will activate you back into your body. So you might even have an essential oil structure, or you might have something citrusy that you could that might be grounding for you. Bring that in. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So not the right nostril. I haven't heard that one.
No, the left. Yeah.
Because it's linked in with the other part of the brain, or a specific part of the brain, or that's really cool.
I do. I was listening to this just the other day, and I went, oh my God. So I've started playing with it, because I was naturally a very anxious person, and I masked that with all the stuff, so the busyness and the activation, the achievements, and, the go. And it's not just one thing. We have to find out what works for us. And that's what I guess I'm most excited about, and why I called my business Holding Hands Wellness, because I felt like there's no point me giving you a meal plan that says eat this at this time, because I can tell you right now that in my own healing journey in the last 6 years, there's been times where I've used and adopted that Coco's Pulse test, and coconut has set me up by 20 points, which means no-go zone. Avocado has also done the same thing. Beetroot recently, cabbage. So these are foods that we would technically say are healthy, but we have to look at how our body is engaging with those foods, and at different times. So there's a real strength in eating seasonally, in eating local, so within 100 kilometers, and eating nutrient-dense foods. So we want to try and pick foods that are ultimately as close to life as possible, because they're life-giving. They're not in a packet. And that transition can be quite hard, but once you've actually navigated that, I'm sure you've been on that journey yourselves, it becomes easier. It does not even, it takes a few years to get your training wheels off, but you find, good recipes and a couple of good websites that you can really connect in with, and you just find your groove.
Yeah, I'm really curious to know with that test as well. So are you saying avocado, banana, you were doing that individually for each before you eat it? Could you, so if you had a salad, would you say, is this salad gonna trigger you off because there's so many different ingredients?
It's much more beneficial in isolation. So if you were, for example, we're very much creatures of habit. So I don't know about you, but we kind of get up and we do the same sort of thing. So if we have scrambled eggs, we'll have scrambled eggs a few times a week. So we could just go scrambled eggs. And we would normally have it with, I don't know, smoked salmon, avocado, whatever is normally the things. And often the thing we crave most, believe it or not, are the things that might be setting us off the hardest. Because when we have an immune response in our body, our energy naturally goes, because our immune system in our body is going, help me out, brother, like, help me out. So we're activating that energy. So if you're naturally in a fatigue state, you're going to crave foods that are setting you off. So they would be where I'd start. If you can't live without, those foods, can't live without foods, start there, because they're going to be the ones that you that are activating you the most. And it doesn't mean, it never means not forever. Like the only two things that I would say to clients, you want to potentially pull out forever. One is gluten and wheat, because 19 out of 20 people have a sensitivity to gluten, and gluten, as it evolves, is sensitivity becomes celiac disease. So that the celiac is the end diagnosis. It's not, the beginning is the sensitivity. And again, gluten, you could do the Coco's Pulse test. If you're a O positive blood type, instead of 6, an increase of 6, it's 4. You're the most sensitive and original blood type in the world if you're an O positive. So you're going to have
only 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to have lots of sensitivities, more than likely. And so it's about navigating those. And the more you can pull foods out that are not serving you, the more you're not creating a stress response within, which means that you can start to go into healing mode. And healing mode is really powerful, because when we start going into healing mode and we're not creating that allergic propensity, of course, sleep's better, energy's better, that restorative wellness is better, the inflammation's not in the gut. Because keep in mind that even though gluten is an allergen, like my belief, nobody should eat it. The other thing to navigate is dairy. So some people, a lot of people, have that lactose intolerance. And so when we're constantly eating those foods, all we're doing is putting our body into a state of stress. So it might not be the stress that we seem to relate to externally, but our body doesn't know the difference if we're being chased by a tiger or we're having an allergic food. So if you can imagine constantly being in a stress response. It can also be environmental as well. So you can have, allergens in your environment. You can have EMF, which can really create the same sensitivity, particularly for the more sensitive types as well. So you're going to be more sensitive to the external environmental toxins also, which is just something to be mindful of as well.
I just can't get this. I can't get past this test.
Yeah, cool. Do you want to go through it again? Do you want me to?
Quick little overview again. Do you have to do the whole 100%. Minute? Was it just 15 seconds? Yep. Time to go 4?
I can have a.
So what? Yeah. Okay. So, I always find it with doing it myself. It's a lot easier to do it on my neck. So I find my pulses just there.
Yeah, I found it.
So you want to get into that relaxed state. Check your pulse for 1 minute. It can't be the 15 seconds by 4. It has to be the 4 minute. And if you've got a smartwatch, you might even be able to. I've got clients that have been able to do it on smartwatches. And so that's your baseline. You're in a relaxed state. That's your baseline. So you'd write that down. Then you get the banana and you'd put the banana in your mouth. You don't have to swallow the banana. You can just put it in your mouth. 30 seconds until your lingual neuroreceptors have acknowledged the food, taken it down into the body. Check the pulse again. If it goes up by more than 4 for the O positives, then that's a no for now. If it's 6 for the other blood types, you want to pull it out. And
thank you. That's clear. Yeah. I got it.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
And so much more detectable in isolation, in foods in isolation. So, big ones are going to be things like nuts, particularly if they're not activated and sprouted. Other ones will be rice, can be a real allergen. Eggs, obviously, can be quite a significant allergen. Cinnamon, believe it or not, sadly, can be a real allergen. Yeah, sugar. I mean, look, sugar, that's the other one. So gluten and sugar, I would say refined sugars. Like try and stick to dates, maple, honey. And again, the 99.9% of the women that come to see me in clinic, blood sugar dysregulation. And it's really prevalent in that our body is in a constant state of stress, either from adrenal depletion, or from living a busy, active Western life, or from actually managing blood sugar within the body. So you might not test from the general practice element, but it's happening in the body, where that's where those, finding that food group, particularly that those breakfast foods that are going to be nutrient dense and nourishing, like chia seeds, essential fatty acids, if you can tolerate them, eggs, salmon. Eating dinner for breakfast is not a silly thing. They do it in a lot of Eastern cultures, and they're probably more healthy than most. So, you're thinking of those nourishing, in Vietnamese cultures, they're having that beautiful nourishing bone broths that are cooked slow for hours and hours and hours, and then beautiful rice noodles. So they've got the composite of the fats, the complex carbohydrates, and the protein. So it's about having that balance right on each plate as well. I feel like with my own health, I had so many food sensitivities, and because I'm a sensitive soul, right? And we all often are, but we forget. And adopting, I don't know, and put your hands up, anyone that's followed a diet before or a way of eating with it. Yeah. We look, again, that's looking externally for a solution, and I can completely understand, but there is no one size fits all. So if you've got a friend that started taking vitamin D drops and it's really working out for their osteoarthritis, that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you, right? And so I can, with what I do, we lingual neurotest. So we get our baseline, we do those intake forms. We bring the body into clinic. There are 35 points in the body that we palpate. So we basically palpate. And again, I'm getting that baseline. So between 0 and 10, the client's giving me the tenderness rating. Then what I'm doing is I'm isolating a nutrient, a therapeutic nutrient that is suitable for balancing that organ. So if it's the pancreas, it's blood sugar dysregulation, or if it's the adrenal services or system, or if it's kidneys, or if it's liver, gallbladder. I'm putting a therapeutic nutrient in their mouth. I'm repalpating that point. If that number shifts by half, bingo, body says, yes, that's what I need. And so what will often happen is, when I figure out what the primary concern is, find the right composite of nutrients for that cascade, that digestive cascade, north to south, the whole body will shift. So, and then clients will just say, oh my God, like they'll either have an energetic release, so they'll burst into tears quite often. So we hold that stuff in our body, and when we energetically support the body with the right nutrients, she just feels so serene, calm, grateful, nurtured, loved, like all the things that we don't know how to give ourselves. So start with food. Like, food's really powerful, but have a toolkit, really good quality water, having an energetic restoration program, like having a financial service that can really back you up to make you feel empowered, so that you're not having that mind lack. Is it breath work? Is it meditation? Is it yoga? Whatever your jam is, find it, implement it, bring it in, create consciousness, and just be happy. I don't know.
Love that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. And I think as well, like, maybe trying not to take things way too far. I have a bit of an obsessive behavior, but not. The good thing about my obsessive behavior or addiction behavior isn't like towards alcohol, things like that. My addiction behavior is like, gym, 3 hours a day. Okay, not missing a day. Do that. Or it would be like eating a strict diet, or, I was keto, very, very strict keto for a long period of time. I started off as a high fat, low carb, but then I became too obsessed. So I think it's about like taking that deep breath and going, taking each day as it comes, and also listening to your intuition. And like you say, listening to your body, and then kind of, altering it day by day and really listening to yourself. So I think that was one of my biggest key lessons that I've had throughout my experiences anyway.
Yeah. And if you keep ignoring the feather, you're going to get hit by the Mack truck. And the feather is, waking up in the middle of the night to urinate. All those little clues that we tolerate, we think are normal. They're not. They're blessed gifts. They're messages from our body to say, hey, something's out of balance. And even you know, it's interesting because I've always been one of those people that is very much driven through achievement as well, Frankie. So I can relate to the doing, the creation, the validating self through. And I think there's a lot of stuff that happens in that, in again, those formative years where maybe we don't feel worthy, maybe we don't feel good, like maybe we feel like we have to prove ourselves to be seen. Maybe, you know, I guess that, and that's what I mean by that last 10%. It's always emotional. And I'm not saying that I've mastered that, but there's a website that I stalk quite often, which is called ourspiritualnutrition.com. And if you're wanting to get a little bit curious, you can go in there, and in section 5, she's created this website and this full service for free. And she talks about every single physical ailment and what that means emotionally. So, really, you know, if you want to get a little bit curious and understand what do those clues from the body mean, and then she's got a full workbook for free that she'll support you with and actually go through to work through your emotional stuff. And I can't speak highly enough of it, because often when clients come in and I'll say, oh, you've had a history of meningitis or whatever, right? And so that might be the critical catalyst where the body has gone out of that HPA loop. So it's somehow just become dysregulated, and we need to kind of bring it back into balance so that those processes through, you know, thyroid, HPA, adrenal, you know, that whole system is back and united once again. But often what you'll find is that if you look up ourspiritualnutrition.com, there'll be a reason that person doesn't feel heard. They haven't said no enough, whatever it might be for you, right? Connect in with it, feel it in your body, see if it's right for you, and then go through the process to work on yourself emotionally. If you don't have a budget, that website's free. And if you think that something's kind of sitting there, it's about finding some other modalities that can really unlock that, whatever that looks like for you, you know, whether or not it's rapid transformational therapy, or if it's Psych K, or if it's, you know, hypnosis, or find someone that can kind of explore it.
I love how you
particularly if you've done all the things. Yeah.
Because I was just saying, I love how you touched on that, because one of my best girlfriends, Marion, she is very much into astrology and into a very different aspect of way of looking at life. It's very beautiful. She's an absolute awesome person. But she has this book and she carries it around. It's like this thick. And she's pretty much read the whole thing. And then I'll go to her, hey, I'm experiencing knee pain. And then she looks it up in the book and she's like, did you have an argument or something like this related to this? And I was like, she's like, yeah, that's your body communicating to you that you need to deal with that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Marion. And then I go, crap, she's actually right. I don't want to say she's right, but she's right.
I love that she's right, so she can keep going out there.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing that she does. And it's just from that book. So it must be, that website sounds like it's like that book was in a website form, because her book is Argentinian. So, you know, it's in Argentinian. So it's a very old book that she has, and she translates it for me. It's really, really cool. That's awesome. I love it.
That sounds definitely like my cup of tea. I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Sally, I'm really curious to know, when you moved to Mudgee, yeah? And then you started, obviously you're building this family and you had this more space, you know, how did that change in environment help, I guess, your relationship, your family, and then did that support you creating this health coaching practice and what you're doing today?
100%. Yeah. So being in nature, I'd always lived very CBD. So I was in Pyrmont, or I was in Redfern, or I was in Camperdown in Sydney. So, you know, always that 20-minute arc from work, because my office was in Darlinghurst and I did a lot of stuff CBD and fringe. So it's very much disconnected from nature and, you know, in that high density environment. So moving into 30 acres where I don't know if you can hear the birds, but we've had kookaburras, you know, it's just like this beautiful background. I'm looking over the hills. And so it's been really interesting observing post-drought what Mudgee has been like. And we're a regenerative farm, so we don't use any chemicals, because it would be absolutely ironic of me to say, hey guys, pull chemicals and synthetics out of your own diet, but then just spray the crap out of my paddocks where my sheep eat. So, you know, just again, that authenticity. And sometimes my husband's like, oh, am I going to get rid of the weeds? I'm like, don't worry about the weeds. They're clues. They're clues from the nature's body. And so I've come at it from a very curious standpoint. When there's something disturbed as such, if you watch or observe nature, she knows what the hell she's doing to bring herself back into balance. My gosh, like we've got a mouse plague at the moment in Mudgee, and I'm not kidding, like it's been a little bit next level. But if you just think about the role of mice, and so the burrowing under the ground, you know, they're ultimately doing a job that we cannot do as humans and plants cannot do. So what they're doing is they're penetrating the earth to enable moisture and hydration. So when you think about just even the simplicity of that role, instead of looking at the mice and going, damn you mice, you know, you're a symptom, like we do with our body, damn you sore knee, or damn you headache, or damn you this, or damn you that, we start to become the observer. And so it has 100% played a role in my wellness. I will often go outside, take my shoes off, get grounded. I'll do lots of meditations with my feet on the grass. You know, I'll try and really tune in, and it's been really fascinating because the reason why we moved here was because I had a dream about this eagle. I was an eagle flying, and I never have dreams that I actually remember, and that's a vitamin deficiency, but I was flying as an eagle. And I woke up and I said to my husband, we need to move. We need to move now. And so when we saw this farm, it was exactly the farm that I saw in my dream. And so quite often when I meditate outside, there's this beautiful eagle that flies around the mountains here. And unbeknown to me, that was the totem animal for the Wiradjuri tribe that lived here. So that was for the Wiradjuri women in this part of Mudgee. That was their totem animal. So I'm like, how cool is that? Anyway, yeah, it's cool. So cool. So yeah, I get
biggest goosebumps happening right now.
yeah. So I'm instead of taking that approach where, yeah, you kind of are dealing with a symptom, there's this observational role that's kind of happened, and you know, watching my children play and just being kids in this environment has been really quite restorative, and it has forced me to, in some ways, I'm not great at slowing down, but it has forced me to, for the small windows that I have got, to take it outside and be in nature and share and observe the changes and be curious about that relationship. And I was taught, we had yesterday, we slaughtered our first 2 lambs, one to celebrate my 40th, which was very confrontational watching that process. I'm not going to lie, as a city person that was very disconnected from my meats, going to Harris Farm and whatever else, watching the animal be shot and watching that process of the life go out of its body really made me just be like, she said, what parts of the body do you want? And I said, I want everything. I'm not letting that animal die without being able to use its body to nourish me and my family. So very much now that deliberate connection between, instead of picking prime cuts, picking other cuts that necessarily you wouldn't often use. And we did a ritual, we did a little sort of a blessing for the animal and thanking it for its life and being able to nourish it. So it's just those processes there's a lot more connection between the cycle of life living on a farm and the birth and death. Like we've had a couple of lambs that have died because of the frost, and like you feel it in your soul when they you know, you can't kind of control. That's the thing that it's taught me, is that I can't control things. So
there's actually
it's been amazing
that I want to touch on that you've mentioned. One is just a relation thing. So when I was doing my yoga teacher training a couple of years ago, 7 years ago now, I remember I was in such a meditative state to the point where I'd be walking down the street and I could go up to somebody and I could feel where their pain was. But not only people, I was getting to the point where I was connecting to animals so much. So that I would go, okay, that dog's dehydrated, this dog's this, or that animal needs this, or whatever it might be. And became very, very connected, because one of the things that I've noticed since I was a child was I have a very good way of connecting and being able to understand what that person's going through or that animal without them knowing it. But one of the things that I've recently discovered, which Zac actually made me realize, was my dreams talk to me a lot, which was funny that you say that, because one of the things that I had a dream about the other day was this man was speaking to me in my dream going, I only wash my hair like maybe twice a week, right? And he started saying to me, there's the importance of your hair being able to flourish by not washing it so much. So you need to stop washing it so much. And I was like, this is such a random dream. Like,
That is random.
Somebody, normally I'm dreaming about business or things like that and progression throughout that way. But I've noticed throughout my life that I've actually always listened or foreseen things within my dream that have actually come to reality. One of the things is like, I had a dream that I started running. And I actually started running and my health started to improve because I was running in daylight. I was becoming more connected because I was literally living in the heart of the city. I was 2 Ks from my office, very similar to you. So it became very evident that when Zac said that to me, that your dreams do communicate to you. So it's about listening to that connection. And fascinating that you said about vitamin D, because Zac never remembers his dreams. But we're always in the sun, but he never remembers. Well, most of the time doesn't.
It's getting more and more common.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, apparently, not washing our hair as much, more natural oils.
Yeah,
so that's
more natural oils coming through.
Less man-made soaps, but or apple cider vinegar. They say is good. And but I'm curious to know do you know the nutrient deficiency around not being able to dream? I find our kookaburras are the construction site. 500 meters away from us, so we've got birds of metal.
We're moving back into nature. Birds of process. We're just gonna wait for our lease to end.
This is the first time I've been this close to a city, and it's not even a city. It's just a nice suburb with lots of construction going up. And so I've always lived near the ocean. I've noticed there's a different energy around a lot more structures, and being outside and meditating in nature is a whole nother, it's just frequency, tapping into different frequency. And our brain, my brain feels better in nature, as probably we all do. But curious to know more about that in terms of the dreaming. But I don't know. Do you know the nutrient off the top of your head?
Not of it, but I can check. I've got a book here that will tell me. If you
sure,
awesome. That'd be great.
Hang on a sec.
This is awesome. Wow, what's this book?
That's a functional nutrition Bible. If there's anything else anyone wants answered.
Tell us.
Zac will be playing right after this call. I can already tell.
I'm sure.
But everyone, if you're liking what we're putting down, it's awesome to connect with Sally. Go onto her website, holdinghandswellness.com.au, or the link will be around this video somewhere as well. So make sure you get in touch. And
if anyone has any questions as well, please pop them in the comments and we'll ask.
Sorry, we just impromptu. The only one that I've been able to find is bizarre or vivid or nightmarish dreams. And so that can be a clue that the body is experiencing increased toxicity, dysbiosis caused by the growth of yeast, bacteria, parasites, metabolic toxins. So we want to really create foods that are really supportive for the liver. We want to test about whether or not there's something living in the gut that there shouldn't be, that needs to be brought back into more balance. You would adopt nutrients to support the phase 2 liver detox, glutathione, cysteine, glycine. And so there's other food sources like molybdenum. So you'd find foods that have molybdenum in it, and micro oregano oil, things like that, oregano in foods, lots of garlic, things like that are going to clean out that dysbiosis, and healing and sealing that gut lining, supporting the kidneys, which is our immune. So look, there's lots to it. But as I said, if we can kind of come back to that relationship of thank you, body, for giving me the clues, instead of I'm sick of suffering, because we're just look at it purely as an opportunity to understand yourself better, whether that be emotionally or physically. But I'll come back to you on that question, Zac. Finding those answers can be very healing. So that's really exciting. Thank you. Yeah. I'd love to know, just a random question, putting it out there. If you had $1,000, right?
and you could buy whatever you wanted health-wise to set yourself up with a healthy environment, $1,000 to invest in your own health, what would be your like top few things to purchase or get or learn, or
I know this.
do you know what I mean? So like,
Oh gosh, wow, that's a good one.
How would you spend that $1,000?
The pinnacle for me. So now knowing what I know, I would probably go and I would buy some grass-fed, organic chicken feet, chicken necks, chicken frames. I would be cooking those for about 3 hours if I had histamine responses, with apple cider vinegar, some onion and garlic if tolerated, for about 3 hours. I'd be creating that really gelatinous broth, and then I would be incorporating that into my daily ritual. I would be buying as much organic butter as I possibly could find, because of the butyrate in it, and it's so nourishing. It's a beautiful, healthy fat. I would buy the best quality extra virgin olive oil I could find in the biggest possible quantum. Hemp seeds, flax seeds, ground and oil. What else would I buy? I'd make sure that my hydration status with water was the best quality that I could afford. Celtic sea salt would 100% be up there, because I would be using that to nourish my adrenals, create hydrochloric acid, and bring my body back into balance, because it's a fundamental nutrient. Yeah, I would probably just make sure that I could get near nature and just be really part of. Epsom salt baths would be something that I would, invest in to make sure that my detox pathways are being supported. A good dry brushing brush to get the lymphatic system to do its job in terms of detoxing if my liver was overwhelmed. One thing I can't live without is Weleda skin food, which is it's just a moisturizer. It's a really good one, and they're a really authentic organic brand, been around for 100 years, and they're just amazing. Weleda, and they're cheap. So I'd get rid of the $500 skincare range and just stick to the $25 one. I don't know, and I'd probably figure out a way to freaking invest some of that 500 of that, because then I could create more wealth, and then I wouldn't be stuck with just $1,000, right? So I could create and perpetuate more income to buy more. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
What would you invest in?
I don't know. Someone's given me a hot tip about Bitcoin and blockchain lately, but I'm going to have to look into that.
Those are some awesome points. That's an awesome list.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, just random, another quick question is, if you could send a message out to everyone in the world's smartphone right now and they get a ping notification.
I love this question.
This is a message from Sally-Anne. What would you like to send them? Is it a word, a quote, or what kind of message would you like to send them?
I'd just say, I love you, and you are loved. Because when we feel that in our heart, we make the right decisions for ourselves, right? Whether they be where to go to next, what to eat. When we love ourselves, there's that connection in with making the right decisions for us at this time.
That's absolutely beautiful. That actually brought tears to my eyes, and I was like, nope, be strong.
What about baby?
I'm learning to cry at the moment. Zach's helping me.
How good does a good cry feel? It's the best.
Yeah. It is so good. I think like when you're from a male dominant space, which I was, tech, you'd be as well. Real estate's a very hard game.
Commercial real estate.
Yeah, back at the back of my hand as well. And you become like so defensive that you can't show your feminine side. And then there's actually a really beautiful true power in just being a female and showing that. And a lot of males are now trying to push for it. It's like, just be more feminine. Like I'm the same with, my male friends, or even Zach. Like, I want you to stand in your power and be strong and be a male, be masculine, because that allows me to be my feminine state. So
true.
Yeah. It's
but then I think, raising boys, I think the other element to that now is you want them to be able to tune into their intuition too, because they've been taught to be strong and do this and do that. And it's like, well, that's not our authentic selves. Like, if you were to watch the hunter-gatherers of the original tribes in community, like, we, up until the age of 8, I believe, children were in the female nurturing circle. They were always with mums or female parental beyond that age, they were no longer the woman's responsibility. They were men at the age of 8, and they would go out and they would hunt with the men, and they would observe and they would cultivate. So I think we need to I think we need the yin and the yang, right? We're not just one, we are both. And at different times of the monthly cycle, you know, whether that be feminine or masculine, we need to adapt, and we need to be adaptable. Much like metabolic flexibility, we need to be fat burners and carbohydrate burners. We can't just be one in that keto state all the time. Again, stress response in the body. We have to be metabolically adapted. We need to be the yin and yang, is my belief. You know, so, you know, in terms of how to get there, I don't know. I don't have the roadmap just at this point in time, because I'm still working on it. But
I couldn't actually agree with you
like
anymore.
what you said before, those answers aren't outside of us. They have to be inside of us somewhere, right?
And it's also a beautiful thing that you look back in time and, you know, you go back. I always say to Zac, well, you know, over 300 years ago, we weren't doing this. So we need to look at what they were doing and then adapt that into our daily lives. It's something that I've done for a really long time. And even though obviously it kind of contradicts myself, but I did become obsessed with building my business as well. But I did always have that in the back of my mind. And one thing that I have really noticed, because I'm so passionate about kids, is the celebrations. You know, when females get their periods, they should be celebrated for that. Instead of, I remember when I got mine, it was just like the most embarrassing thing ever. I didn't tell my mom for 3 months. And she's like, why didn't you tell me? And it's the same with, you know, males when they start to drop their voices and things like that. They go through that phases of celebration or testing and things like that. So you can transition into womanhood. You can transition into, you know, that male state or into a man.
Right,
and it's so important. So important.
There's apparently a tribe in Africa where for 3 months of the year, all the men dress up as women and celebrate feminine.
Wow, cool.
Can you imagine?
Wow, that's interesting. That would, well, we do Mardi Gras, we do it for one day, but we don't do it. Yeah, and you know, maybe that's what's missing, right? Like maybe that is part of what's missing. Maybe that cross identity of what it's like to be in someone else's shoes and having empathy. I don't know what the answers are, but I feel like in the last 100 years, somewhere, somehow, we have really taken the left turn at Albuquerque where we should have taken a right. And like, if we can get back to soul and back to self and back to intuition and back to that yin and the yang, and stop looking at our body as a separate vehicle and start looking at it as part of the whole, you know, instead of ripping out gallbladders and appendix and, you know, all these things, like, for fuck's sake, these are part of our anatomy. We are born with them. It's mind-blowing the amount of people I see in clinic that in the 80s and 90s where it was cool to rip out a goddamn gallbladder. Do you know what a gallbladder does? For God's sakes, it's fundamental. And appendix, oh yeah, just rip that out. And instead of looking at root cause of, well, why is the gallbladder like in stasis? Why is the energy blocked in that organ? We'll just pull it out, man. That's all good. Like, Jesus. I'm not discrediting anyone that's made that decision. It's not a judgment. I just, when we start to observe the body as a whole, and we start to really connect in with what those clues mean, then we don't feel like pulling those internal organs out. And you know, that has lifelong consequence, those decisions. So I've actually started saving, I know this is going to sound so creepy, but I've started a list of the amount of internal organs that I've managed to save and keep within the body, because women come to me and they're like, my hormonal problems are so bad, I'm going to get a hysterectomy. That's what my doctor said. I'm like, oh shit, you're not. No, you're not. You give me 6 months, baby. We're going to work this out. And nipples being removed from lactation, blood sugar dysregulation, like just some crazy cray stuff. And I'm like, whoa, like that again, like sometimes it just makes me burst into tears, because it's just like, how lost do we feel when the last option is to pull our internal organs out of our body? Like, have a think about that just for a minute. Like, that's just like next level. Like, if you feel like that's the only option you have, man, you can come see me for free, because I don't want any of your body parts to be pulled out of your body. Because don't you think that just sounds a little bit weird? Like, just thinking about it, like as if that's the last choice. So yeah, I'm very passionate about keeping our anatomy intact because the body's giving us clues. It has the right to heal. It wants to heal, and it will be demonstrated in clinic. Like when we palpate those points, we find the right therapeutic nutrients. I can't tell you the shifts. Like I, even as a client and going through the process myself, when we were checking on the thymus points, which is sort of lungs, detox, immune. And we had mold here, and I had a history of living in a moldy apartment where it really wreaked havoc. Like that's when it was kind of like game over, the crescendo of my chaos. And when we had mold here, I started mouth breathing again, and just really weird signs. Like the brain fog was like really chronic. I was waking up every hour to wee, like to detox, and then we found the problem and we were able to eradicate it. But the thymus point and just like when I was on the table with another practitioner and the emotional outbursts that came out, they found the right nutrients, supported that detox pathway, and I just sat up bolt upright and just burst into tears, like just uncontrollably. It was like my body knew that that's what it needed to bring it back into balance. And there was just this relief, if that, like this really energetic relief of thank you, you found the right way. Because I'm still learning to listen to my body. It's still a working process. I haven't nailed it yet. And I think that's also that eternal observer can be really powerful.
For sure, that listening to the body, hey?
And I want to say documenting all of that.
How many organs have you
saved?
saved?
If you don't document that, then this is where people get that disbelief, you know. It's having that physical thing that they can see, that they can actually see that people have gone through it. That makes people want to actually come forward and come through. So thank you for doing that. We need more and more people documenting. And
no one's taught us how to listen to our body, and our body's always been talking to us. And so that's really, really amazing. I highly recommend anyone listening right now. I'm getting shivers multiple times.
Yeah, I know. I keep getting shivers.
Go check in with your website. How can people connect with you and get in touch?
So I holdinghandswellness.com.au, or they can give me a call if they want to learn more about that Coco's Pulse test. The book Intuitive Knowing Your Truth is $1.28 Australian on Amazon. And I have gone through my own bit, my story, and I've also elaborated on that tool in that book. So it's $1.28. All proceeds from that book go to Barter, which is a teen health, mental health, teen mental health support to help the coming of age. And we are doing the New Consciousness Summit between the 22nd and the 24th of April, which is next week, which is 22 speakers worldwide talking about that new world, like how do we support ourselves financially, energetically, and nutritionally. And so that'll be really cool. That's $65. And just if you want to email me, sally@holdinghandswellness.com.au, you can send me a link. I'm more active on my personal profile, which is Sally-Anne Kearns. And I've got a free Facebook group where I sort of share kitchen hacks and recipes and different things that I find interesting in Simple Wellness for Women, which is a Facebook group. So yeah, look, and just know that you can, like, where you are right now. The healing journey is not linear. You'll take 5 forward, 2 back, 3 forward, 1 back. It's not like a like this, but our body wants to heal. When we find the right toolkit and we find the right people to support us. So yeah, just have faith.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
I've learned so much from this. So I can't believe how many times I've shivered. I've done that for quite a while. So.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
This has been super insightful, and everyone at home, I'm sure they're all going to please take notes, listen to this again, share this out. We'll be turning this video into some amazing pieces of content to share with even more people. So this message needs to get out. And thank you so much for everything you're doing, and really excited to jump on that summit and to maybe just book in a call for us.
Yeah,
no worries. I've got a farm stay clinic, so if you want to come and chill out in Mudgee for a weekend, you're welcome to stay.
I don't think Mudgee's not far from us.
It's probably pretty far. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's New South Wales, right?
Yeah, New South Wales.
We'll fly
we're
when we can fly.
Cool.
But yeah, would love to have you back on another time, and we can talk about more of the vaccine stuff. There's like the vaccine passports coming out now, all what's the solution
Tracking
there?
devices,
Tracking, like
everything.
our freedoms. So without health, we have nothing. So this is step number one, and we look forward to, reconnecting very, very soon. So thank you so much for your time, SallyAnne.
Thank you both. You are loved.
You too.
Thank you.